Hello everyone, and welcome to this special RPGX training video brought to you by the Last Outpost. I am Jensen, current chairman of the TLO Council and Academy Dean. For all you new recruits taking this course, let me just say a couple of things. Firstly, this course is designed to give you a basic introduction into the RPGX mod, the rules of the TLO server, as well as basic elements of roleplay. This course can't teach you the more advanced aspects of roleplay. These are things that you just must learn through your time and practice roleplaying on our server in the months to come. Additionally, please note that there is an exam portion of the Academy, which will cover many of the things that I will show you today. So I strongly suggest you take notes on some aspects of things we're covering now, as during the final exam you will not be allowed to look at this video. Please feel free, however, to reference this video at any time when you are not taking the exam. Let's start at the very beginning with getting set up in RPGX. The first thing you'll want to do is to pick a class. Which class you pick will depend on what position you want to take within the roleplay. Command is the first class. Command is used for the commanding officer, the executive officer, and the helmsman. Science class is for science officers. Security class for security officers, engineering for engineering officers, operations for operations officers, civilians for civilians, and aliens for aliens. Rather straightforward. Let's go ahead and get into position and say that I'm going to be the CO of the RP. I will bring down the console using the accent or tilde key on most keyboards, and then typing into the console /class command. This puts me in the command class. My rank is actually already set up, but let's pretend it wasn't set up. If my rank wasn't set up, I would bring down the console, bring in the slash, and type in rank, and then the rank code. A list of rank codes is provided for you in the reference section of the Academy forums. Now that I have my rank and class properly set up, I need to change my name to reflect the position. Again, I am CO, so I would type into the console name, followed by a quotation mark, *1, CO, *7, Jensen. And thus my name appears as so. Let's talk a little bit about adding color to your name. The *1 you just saw was the code for red. Red is used for command. *2 is green, and is used for aliens and alien dignitaries. *3 is gold, and is used for security and engineering officers. *4 is dark blue, and is used for medical and science officers. *5 is light blue, and is generally used for civilian officers. *6 is a sort of purple, which is very seldom used in any RPs, and *7 is just the normal white text. You'll use *7 usually once you're changing from a color like red into a color like white. Like so. There are other ways you can change your name, but I find the name quotation mark way the easiest way. I believe you can also use set name without quotation marks, but I'm just accustomed to the other way. Once you have everything set up, you're good to go. And before going off naming, let me just quickly go through the other abbreviations for the other common positions. XO is the code for Executive Officer. COS is the code for Chief of Security. CSO for Chief Science Officer. CE for Chief Engineer. OPS for Ops. Helm for Helm, unless it's on a station, in which case it's often CFC, or Chief of Flight Control Officer. COU for Counselor. AMB for Ambassador. CMO for Chief Medical Officer. Sometimes you'll also see TC, which is Transporter Chief. For junior positions, ENG for Engineer, SCC for Security, SCI for Science, and that about covers it. Next, let's go over the different types of chat that you will see used on the server during an RP. The most common chat you'll see is global chat. To bring up global chat, most people will hit the T button, which will bring up the Say Team interface. Global chat can be seen by everyone on the server and is generally used for all plot-related conversations, as well as for most OOC or out-of-character conversations that are directed to everyone on the server, like so. Local chat is usually activated by pressing the Y key. The Y key brings up just say, like so. Local chat can only be seen by people in the immediate area. So if you were here in the transporter room with me, or immediately adjacent, you could hear what I was saying, as well as any admins on the server. But if you were non-admin, say on the bridge, you wouldn't know what I was saying. Local chat should generally only be used when there's a large group of people on the server, usually 10 or more, where it's important to distinguish between essential plot conversation and non-essential plot conversation. Non-essential plot conversation uses local chat. This might include, say, a medical checkup, or character development, or things of that nature, just to make sure that the major plot elements aren't overshadowed by these. Usually the admins will direct you to use local chat if things are getting a bit chaotic. Private chat is another form of messaging that is available to you on the server. Private chat can only be seen by you and the person you are chatting to, as well as the admins of the server. In order to send a private message, bring down the console and type in tell, then put in the user ID, and then the message. You can find a list of user IDs by pressing Tab and looking at Client ID, and the number will be listed there. Please note that a current unfortunate bug in RPGX is that if you have not encountered a player on the map, they will always show up as 0, even if that is not their client ID. In order to find out their client ID if you haven't seen them yet on the server, simply ask globally in OOC chat for that person to give their ID, and that's the easiest way to really work. Also, while we're talking about different forms of chat, please remember that OOC, or out-of-character conversation, needs to be in parentheses, like so. This helps distinguish between what your character is saying in the context of the plot itself, and what you yourself are saying to others on the server out of your character. Another sort of chat that's very useful is a little command called me. Me can be used to express an action, like me eats spleens, and it shows up on the server as CO Jensen eats spleens. This is an easy way to show that your character is doing an action without having to awkwardly fit it into the dialogue. It's very handy. Another sort of thing you should be aware of is the communications badge. The communications badge is used to denote conversations that are taking place between characters who are in 2 different locations. It's very easy to form a communicator. Simply hit the equal sign, the slash sign, the backslash sign, and then another equal sign, and put at the beginning of all your lines that are being directed towards someone on another deck or in another room. This covers the different sorts of chat we have available to us. Now let's proceed to the rules of the server. The rules of the server can be found in the MOTD, or the message of the day. That's the thing that pops up every time you log into the server. Now, I'm on my own local server right now, so I don't disturb anyone on our main servers. But normally you would go to your menu and press MOTD, and voila, it would appear. Let's basically run over the major rules of the server. The first is keep out-of-character chat, in parentheses. The second is no fragging at any time on the serious server. That includes firing your weapon randomly. And it also includes fragging when called for by the RP. If you're doing a firefight, don't intentionally try and frag the other person. RP the firefight, and record any hits or being stunned using the me command. Please remember that the no fragging rule applies on the serious server even when an RP is not in progress. You can, however, frag to your heart's content on the unserious server. Please also note that button spamming, that is, pressing a variety of buttons for no apparent reason, such as turning off the warp core or the alerts, etc., is not allowed, nor is jumping around, running around, or doing anything else that's disruptive to the RP. Just use some common sense there. Also, please try to keep all your content on the server PG-13 rated. We're fine if your character curses every now and then, or if you have some violence or some very mildly suggestive themes. But do remember that we do have some people who RP with us who are between the ages of 12 and 15, and make sure that your content is appropriate for that. Any sort of sexual content is strictly forbidden, not only on the serious server, but also the unserious server. Just use some common sense again. Another rule that you should remember is to always comply with admin requests. If you feel that an admin is telling you something that is unreasonable, then bring it up with the CO of the RP, or better yet, bring it up with myself, or the current chairman of the council. Um, also, always remember to follow CO directives. The CO is basically the game master of the plot. And they control the plot. So if the CO doesn't want you to do something, don't do it. And if they want you to be in a certain position, please do it. This just helps contribute to the good order of the RP. Also, please remember that advertising is never allowed on the servers. You're on our server, you know, it's just out of a mark of respect. Please don't advertise other communities here without getting consent from a member of the council. Now, advertising also includes any sort of saying, well, let's go to such and such a server and do an RP there instead. That also counts as advertising. Let's briefly go over some basic emotes that are very helpful for you. The emotes can be found by going to the Emotes menu. And you can see that they're classified in a variety of different headings. If you're new to RPGX, I strongly suggest you play around with the emotes and find some that you think would be very useful. If you find one that's useful, go here to Keybind, click on it, and then bind it to a certain key so that you can easily access it, like this. Emotes can be very fun and very helpful. Oh, look at me, I'm dancing. Ah, ah, ah. Yes, quite. In order to exit an emote, you can simply click the mouse key on the left side, so you don't have to worry about jumping out of an emote, which I've noticed some newer members do. Next up, the role of admins. Admins have the responsibility of maintaining the good order of the server. That means making sure that rule breakers are dealt with, and also making sure that disruptions to the plot stop. Admins are also able to do a variety of cool things. Admins can play music for your RP. They can even do awesome special effects like this. Yes, quite. Admins can do a variety of other things as well, but you know these are the most helpful ones to really spice up the RP and to add some effects. So if you ever find yourself a CO of a plot and an admin is present, you can just ask us to provide these special effects, and we'll be happy to do so. Please keep in mind, however, that we might be busy following someone who may be breaking the rules, etc. Our duties to keep the server in order come first, but we will certainly be happy to help you out in whatever way we can if we are able to. A list of admins can be found once again in the MOPD, as well as our MSN addresses, should there be any problems. Next up, the role of the CO. The CO is the commanding officer. Out of character, the CO controls the plot. He's what some people would call a game master. He controls where the plot goes and where it doesn't go, and makes sure that everything flows smoothly. If an admin is not present on the server, the CO is also responsible for maintaining good order on the server. Whether or not an admin is present, the CO should be very much aware of plot jacking and stop people from adding major elements into the plot that are disruptive as soon as he sees them, and to tell people to ignore it so that people don't get confused. We'll go over plot jacking towards the end of our lesson, but just take note of that in your mind for now. In character, obviously, the CO issues orders to the crew and commands the ship. You've all seen Star Trek, so you know what the captain does, so I won't linger too much on that. If more than one person wants to be CO for an RP, you should have a vote on it. We'll go over in just a moment how to use the console commands to call a vote to elect a CO. Additionally, if a CO is doing very badly in an RP, or is AFK, or generally acting noobish, the CO may be removed by a majority vote on the server, and then a new plot can come in. Let's briefly go over some common console commands that you'll need to use in RPGX. This is not a complete list. I will link you to Tayson's wonderful console guide in the Academy reference section, so please do check that out shortly, and I'll try and put it in the description of this video. The first command that you should be aware of is the calling a vote to change the map. Simply bring up the console and type in call vote map and then map name, like RPG Solaris. And if a majority of people agree to it, then that will be the map. If you don't know a map name, don't worry. Simply type in dir, then map, to bring up a list of maps. I believe you can also use list map for this purpose. You can also do the same thing with music, with dir music. Secondly, if you ever have a noob problem on the server and the admin's not there to deal with it, you can simply type in call vote kick and then the player ID there, like 2, and if a majority agree to it, that player will be kicked. Again, you can find a list of the IDs under client ID of the tab menu. Another command that you may find helpful if an admin isn't present is the music, and then music name command, like Serene6, for instance. This allows you to run music on your computer if an admin isn't present, so the CO could say, hey everyone, play Serene6, and everyone would type in Serene6, and voila, you have music on the server even though an admin isn't present. Those are the basic console commands for now. Oh, let me also cover changing models. Model name, uniform type, and then color. So for instance, for me, it would be model Culhane Admiral default. For most people, it would be something like model Oviedo Main, which is the first contact uniform, default for red, gold for science officers, and gold for security and engineering officers, and teal for medical and science officers. The only other uniform types that you may see are combat uniforms. You might also see cadet. And I think those are really the main uniforms that you'll see in RPGX. Now that we've covered some of the basic console commands, let's go on to dealing with noobs. This is a problem that you'll probably encounter every so often. Generally, an admin will be present so they can deal with the problem, but if an admin isn't present, here are some steps to dealing with a troublemaker. First, warn the person to stop. A lot of times people who come on our server are new and aren't familiar with our rules, and sometimes a friendly reminder that they're breaking the rules and that they need to stop will be sufficient. If, however, they continue to break the rules, you can call a vote to kick them, again, using the call vote kick and then ID command we mentioned earlier. If it's just you and them on the server, or for some reason you can't get a majority, and they cause trouble, or they return and keep causing trouble, you should contact an admin and ask them to come on the server immediately. Again, our MSN infos are listed in the MOTD, so one of us should be on. If for some really strange reason none of us happen to be on MSN at the time, then go onto the forums and go under server information and the noob report forum and fill out a noob report, and we will deal with it as soon as we can. Let us briefly go over two of the more subtle types of noobing that crop up frequently in RPs. The first being plot jacking. Plot jacking is when someone introduces a major element into the RP without getting the CO's consent first. This could be something as glaring as, say, a warp core breach, or oh my gosh, they're a Borg attacking, or random alien intruders, to something as subtle as oh, I've contracted a virus, or oh, they're really not here after all, or something of that nature. You get the point generally. Um, all plot changes need to go through the CO and have his or her consent before introducing them into the plot. If you're not sure if something is a major element or not, it's best to always play it safe and check with the CO first. The second type of common issue is what I like to call superhero syndrome. Superhero syndrome is when your character manifests qualities that go beyond the realms of reality. Yes, it's sci-fi, but your character has limitations also, being a sentient species that is corporeal. Examples of superhero syndrome might be, say, fending off um, the ship from alien intruders single-handedly, or blowing up 5 million Borg cubes with a single torpedo strike, or single-handedly saving the day, and such. This is not only unrealistic, it also takes away the ability for your fellow RPers to resolve the conflict of the plot. Remember that a plot resolution needs to take on the form of many people's contributions and not just one person. Otherwise, that one person is going to enjoy the plot, but not everyone else. Likewise, a more subtle instance of superhero syndrome is when your character takes on 10 million specialties. For instance, your character may be playing an engineer, but he's also a brilliant tactician and a brilliant scientist and a brilliant commanding officer and all that. It's fine for your character maybe to have one subspecialty. For instance, maybe your science officer character also knows a little bit about medicine, but you really don't want to go beyond that because, once again, it's unrealistic and it prevents others from resolving the plot. This covers the basic part 1 of our training course. A link to part 2 is available in the descriptions, where we will go over the different departments. As always, if you have any questions about what has been covered here, or questions about something that hasn't been covered here, please feel free to PM myself or any other member of the Academy faculty, and we'll be happy to answer your questions. I'll see you over in part 2 of the video.